Bladder pain can be from oxalate and the oxalate crystals that it's forming as it's coming out of the kidneys. We know the major cause, the major source of the substance that makes up a kidney stone is oxalic acid binding with calcium. You get these calcium oxalate stones forming and they start clumping and clustering, and then they block the passages in the kidney, and you get some really serious pain and you're in trouble because you can't block that flow. It causes infections and so on. Toxins access to the nerves in the bladder, and the bladder can deliver some pretty awful pain.
Hey, everybody. Today I'm sharing a portion of a longer interview I did with Sally K. Norton, where we discuss interstitial cystitis, which is a painful and often debilitating condition. And foods that you may think are healthy, like spinach and almonds, might actually be making your symptoms worse. Sally is a leading expert on oxalates, and here she explains how these natural plant toxins can impact our bodies. And she also shares practical tips for finding much needed relief. Let's get started. Something that I absolutely have dealt with in my past is interstitial cystitis. And I had, started with an Atkins diet so long ago. This was right out of college. And I was like, spinach and steak and blue cheese. I was eating tons and tons of spinach. And, I didn't realize that I dealt with the pain of cystitis for years.
Oh,
And once I reduced the oxalate, like my entire life changed. But nobody was talking about the fact that the spinach could be causing this kind of pain.
it's remarkable to me that it's not well known that bladder pain can be from oxalate and the oxalate crystals that it's forming as it's coming out of the kidneys. We know the major cause, the major source of the substance that makes up a kidney stone is oxalic acid binding with calcium. You get these calcium oxalate stones forming and they start clumping and clustering, and then they block the passages in the kidney, and you get some really serious pain and you're in trouble because you can't block that flow. It causes infections and so on. Why wouldn't a nasty crystal that is so toxic and quite damaging to the kidneys not irritate the bladder?
Right. Right. Nobody puts that together.
For the bladder, it isn't fine for the bladder. And this combination of the oxalic acid ions that aren't bound with calcium and the calcium oxalate crystals that can be these nanoparticles that are particularly toxic start eroding the health of the cells of the bladder, eroding the gag layer, which is the slimy covering that the cells make to make the bladder real slippery and protect the cells from the toxins in the urine. That starts to break down, and then you have toxins access to the nerves in the bladder, and the bladder can deliver some pretty awful pain when you've got this damage to the bladder lining. You keep peeing out oxalates all the time, it's hard to repair.
I mean, I just have to tell you that you have helped me so much. I mean, your information, being able to go low oxalate for me with the problem of interstitial cystitis has been amazing, because now it's like it's life changing for me, right? You wake up in the morning with cystitis and you're like, you know, this could not be worse. The level of pain is so intense. And now I wake up in the morning and I don't have to wonder, like, how much pain am I going to be in? What's my day going to be like? What appointments am I going to have to cancel? You know, it's so different. It's such a different quality of life.
It's amazing how much health affects every aspect of your life, and what a big deal it is to finally get relief, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
Simple diet changes makes a world of difference. It's
yeah,
cool.
it's really cool. It's something that people really need to pay more attention to. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Right. Absolutely. I speak with so many women who have got this pain and they just don't know how to get rid of it because the oxalate is there. It's in their systems. And even if they now decide to go low oxalate, there's this period of time where you are still dealing with clearing, the oxalate. How
That's,
long of a
yeah, because
process can that be?
it depends on the person, and it depends on what we're talking about. I think the kidneys are known to accumulate oxalate, not just as kidney stones, but this sort of nephrocalcinosis, because the kidneys literally hang on to the oxalate crystals to keep the passages flowing. so that they don't form stones. And the rest of the body has a similar mechanism that is understudied. They don't really look at what we call extrarenal accumulation of oxalates, which is a well-established fact in science for the last 50 something years. We've known that there's this accumulation in tissues, but particularly in the kidneys. And my feeling is that it takes a good year and a half if someone has a lot of nephrocalcinosis and stone tendencies or crystalline urine. It can take a while for the kidneys to unload their burden of accumulated oxalate after you lower oxalate. Surprisingly, though, some people, the minute they quit eating it at every meal, they start seeing much happier bladder. And especially the first week or so, because it takes a while for the body to go, hey, wait, you mean you're not going to keep eating this stuff? We can finally clean up the mess you've been making all these years. And so it
Mhm.
might take a while before the body goes after this calcifications in the kidneys and elsewhere. I think the body starts with the kidneys. So the poor urinary tract remains in harm's way long after you stop eating the oxalate, because you now have an oxalate accumulation problem that you need to reverse. And that reversal hasn't been well studied, but here we can use common sense and basic observation of our bodies, and we can learn a lot. And that's what we've been doing as a community who's now got the awareness to be able to observe with more information and interpret what's going on. So it's really fascinating what we're learning as a community.